All right, so now we've been able to get our Twilio demo up and running. It's the way that we want it. Everything is good to go. So now, how do we actually share this code? We're going to use something called source control. So let's go ahead and demo that. Most of you are probably at least on the surface level familiar with Git. So I'm going to assume that you know how to use Git for the most part. So let's go in here. So we have our lect5, and we want to have this entire folder stored in our Git repo. So in order to do that, we have to first make a Git repo. And the way to do that in Git is to do git init, I-N-I-T. Now, the way that you can test whether a Git repo has been initialized is you can do git status. So git status should say something like on branch master, no commits, etc. Cool. It's also telling us a couple things. So it's saying that there are untracked files, Twilio text demo and twilio.env. Now, if we remember correctly, this is a file that we want to be able to share with other people. But twilio.env, we should absolutely, under no circumstances, be sharing that with anyone else. So let's go ahead and click on this and then copy this. Oh, actually, this is really great. I'm going to use this UI here. I just clicked on it, and you can actually press git add on here. So let's go ahead and do git add here. The other way you can do it is just type out git add, Twilio, text demo, etc. Now, if we do a git status, we're going to see that that is in green. It's basically going to say, aha, so Git is supposed to track this file, but we haven't told Git to track this file yet. So if we accidentally at some point put twilio.env in, then our secret keys are going to be revealed to everyone, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do instead is make a new file called gitignore. And this gitignore file is going to keep a list of every file that we don't ever want Git to keep track of. So let's just go ahead and add twilio.env here. And keep in mind that if we want to keep the entire path of it basically from where gitignore is. So if I do an ls-a, that's going to show all files, including hidden files. Gitignore is right in this root directory lect5, and so is twilio.env. So you want to make sure the entire path is here from where gitignore would be. So this looks good. And now if we do a git status, you can see that twilio.env isn't even on this list, because this gitignore is basically saying don't ever include twilio.env, pretend the file doesn't exist. But the thing is, we do want to add gitignore into our commit. So let's go ahead and do git add.gitignore. Now if we do a git status one more time, we're going to see .gitignore, and we're going to see Twilio text demo as well. So this is great. These are the files that we want Git to track. We want these to be the files that we are able to share to other people. So how do we actually share it? All we've said right now is, cool, these are the files we want to share, but we haven't actually done the sharing. So the way that we share it is we do a git commit. So instead of a -m, I'll just go through the full commit. This is opening up in Nano. So this is just a different text editor, and it's basically saying right now, enter a commit message for your changes. So all it's saying is it's asking us what we changed in this file. So what we did was and we want to write this in the present tense basically, not the past tense. So you want to say something like add Twilio text demo and gitignore so that secret keys are not pushed to Git. Something like that. And then the way that you save in Nano is Control-O, Control-X. I believe that's true. Control-O, enter, Control-O, enter, Control-X. And that should push it out. You can also do git commit -m and then just type whatever you want in here. So again, you could have done whatever you want. Now if we go to git status, it's going to say there's nothing to commit working tree clean. That basically means the commit that, like the things that we wanted to actually commit and say that we want to share, it's already done. We've committed that. But people can't access that just using Git. We want to be able to use GitHub in order to host our different repositories and share them with other people. So you should have a GitHub by now. If you don't, you can sign up at github.com. What we're going to do now is create a new repository on github.com. So let's go ahead and say lect5 here. Let's make it a private repository. And then we don't have to add a gitignore. You don't have to add a readme right now. Let's just create the repository. Awesome. So now that we are able to actually do this, it's saying create a new repository on the command line and stuff like that. One thing that we can do is pretty much follow these directions. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's do this remote add step. So I just copied and pasted that. And now I'm going to take the next line, git branch m. For now, you don't have to worry about what this means. Just go ahead and follow these directions. Just go ahead and copy and paste them. And I'll explain what pushing is. We'll talk about branching a little bit later in the class, but not right now. So we're going to push, which basically says we have these local commits. They're saved on our computer in our Cloud9 instance. But we want to share it with the world. And the way you share it with the entire world is by pushing it onto GitHub. So now we're going to push onto here. I have to enter my password now. Let's find that. So I'm just going to take this password and copy it. And now it's writing out, basically, and now it says it's set up to track master from origin. Cool. We don't really care about what that means right now. But now if we go back and jump into lect5 here, we should see two files. We should see a Twilio text demo, and this has all of our code with our hello world application. And then we should also see our gitignore, which basically just says, hey, you should see that twilio.env is this file that we have locally, but we're not actually pushing it. The next thing I would say is that at this point, this works, but it's not very obvious what twilio.env is, so we should be adding a readme. So let's go ahead and go into lect5. Oops. So once we go into lect5, let's go ahead and actually add a readme. So we can do an add file here, and you can actually create a new file. You can do this in the command line as well, or you can do it here. And then here we should have detailed instructions on how to get this running. So there were a couple things that we did today that we have to keep in mind. We did like a pip install of Twilio. We also did, what else did we do? I believe we also created and used twilio.env. And we did have some instructions on the Cloud9 instance, but you don't need to have a Cloud9 instance in order to do this. So you don't have to worry too much about that. The other thing that we might want to do eventually is, instead of hard coding these phone numbers, we might want to use those as environment variables as well. So I'm going to add that in here. Use environment use environment variables in lieu of the hard coded phone numbers. That way we don't have to share those phone numbers out with everyone else either. Great. So that's all we're going to do, and then we're just going to commit and say create readme, and then we're just going to commit that new file. And then I'm going to make sure that this isn't enough of a readme. Like for your first project, if this is what your readme consists of, you're going to get a 0 on that. You have to actually explain what pip install Twilio does, why you have to run that. You have to explain how you created twilio.env, what's inside of that, how to use it, how to populate it. You have to talk about Twilio console. I'll actually add that in there. So you might want to talk about, for example, twilio.com/console. You have to talk about all those steps on how to do that. This should basically be a checklist of how to get your entire app running, if you don't know anything else about Twilio or anything like that. So again, we're going to update our README and stuff like that. Great. So that is how you use a gitignore in order to ignore any secret files that you don't want to push into Git. This is extremely important. If you don't have this env file and you don't use the gitignore, then you're going to get 20% off on your projects without me even reading the code. So the maximum you can get on your project is a B minus, an 80% basically. And you don't want to deal with that basically. Just push this twilio.env file so that no one ever sees it or anything like that. That's just going to prevent a lot of headaches.